Why, hello there everybody. How are you doing today? It's me again. And today's date is December or 12/22, 2017. December 22nd, 2017 is the date that I am recording this portion of this video. Okay? So, in this video, what I am going to do is I am going to go through the entire arrest narrative, one line at a time. And there are a couple of things I need you to remember about this. One, this arrest and booking report document is still, today, as of December 22nd, 2017, is still sitting at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office without any final disposition or any disposition on it. Why? Well, as soon as we start reading this arrest and booking report, you're going to understand why. Because as I said before, it documents them and all of their crimes. And while you're reading this, it's hard to grasp because you are a law-abiding citizen. You cannot believe that the law-abiding citizen, that the vice unit is going to terrorize someone, would actually write this. But remember, it's their own handwriting. They are admitting that they did this to me. It's going to turn your stomach. Now remember, I've already explained to you the writing technique used in it. Transfer. So I will point out every time transfer is used. I've also explained to you, you've also read the statute about entrapment. And I will point out in this every time an act of entrapment takes place. Okay? I've also shared with you the Florida statute procuring a person under 18 for prostitution. That is exactly what you're about to see when we read this document. Them offering me what I believe is a 14-year-old child. It's going to make you sick. And we take our time and we read it line by line because, one, of who is writing it, you're trusting these people. This is why they're a threat. They are operating as ministers of Almighty God. All the while, it's plain, they're saying some of the most sick, vile things out there simply to arrest someone. And remember, this narrative was written after the fact. Okay? So, but this is the threat. This is why they need to be removed. Because ministers of God do not go around and try to set people up. Law enforcement does not go around setting people up. Well, they're not supposed to anyway. A real law enforcement officer, what does a real law enforcement officer does? Well, it's in the title. They enforce the law. Whenever they know that the law has been violated, no matter who it is that has violated said law. So once again, you real law enforcement officers, it's time for you to choose who you will serve. Will you honor the oath that you made to us law-abiding citizens, as well as to your Creator? And will you enforce the law? Will you make sure that justice is served? Same thing for you attorneys, because you took the very same oath. Same thing for you judges. Same thing for the clerk of the court's office. It's time for you to step up and do the right thing. How many more people have to be hurt? How many more 8-year-old little girls have to be kidnapped, raped, and murdered before you actually do something? Now, citizen, law-abiding citizen, I'm talking to you. You are allowing this by remaining silent. You are allowing this to keep going on by remaining silent. So says the law. So says Almighty God. And you will be held accountable for everything, every word that comes out of your mouth, every little thought that you thought of, and every action that you did, as well as every inaction. Because inaction is an action when an action is required. Law-abiding citizens, these law enforcement officers, the real law enforcement officer knows that they are there to serve you. The real attorney knows that they are there to serve you. The real judge knows that they are there to serve and protect you, not to treat you like cattle. You, Christians, are allowing this to go on. You are allowing this to keep going simply by remaining silent because you're afraid to rock the boat. Me, I've been given instructions to not rock the boat, to find all of the criminals' boats and sink them. But not only sink them, this is what my God told me to do. You find these boats that are filled with these criminals. There's over 100 of them. That's a lot of boats. You find the boat, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to pick the boat up out of the water, and I'm going to give you the ability to do that. Hello, that's what I'm doing right now. Then flip the boat upside down and shake every single one of those criminals out of it. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm exposing them. That way they drop back in the water. They got no place to hide. Then what I want you to do is put the boat in the water on top of them. Thereby they can't escape. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm giving you all the truth. I'm giving you all the facts. You know who these people are. You know what they've done. And then I want you to sink said boat. That's what I'm doing. Then I will point out the next boat. Because we haven't even gotten to the lawyers. I told you folks, it only gets worse for these criminals. And it gets no worse than this. But now you will understand exactly why. You will know exactly why that arrest and booking report is still, the original copy is still hiding at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in the year 2017. As of today's date, which is 12/22/2017. Police officers did not write this arrest and booking report. Criminals wrote it. Fakes, frauds, counterfeits, bullies. And they haven't been preventing me from saying anything about this. And I said this in yesterday's video. They haven't been preventing me. They've been hiding this from me because they knew once I found out what they had tried to do, this is exactly what would happen. Because they could not force me, threaten me, bully me, shame me into admitting that I basically sinned. I'm a child of the one true living God. Calling a phone number is not sin. Calling up a phone number is not sin. Okay? You people need to stop judging people. But that's the biggest reason why you remain silent, is because you are afraid of what everyone... You are afraid of this happening to you. Of you being shamed. Because you know, hello, you're human. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So stop acting like you're perfect. Stop acting like you are a better Christian than Jesus Christ, because you're not. Nor will you ever be. Because you are flesh and blood, you are human. We are all growing. All constantly. We sin every day. Sometimes it happens that quick. Well, just like these criminals. Just like these criminals. All of these criminals, these lawyers, these criminals that were about to read in their own handwriting exactly what they did. And you're going to remember, it's supposed to be a law enforcement officer doing this. Every time you read, every time I go over the line, I want you to ask yourself, would a law enforcement officer do this? Why are they doing this to someone because they called a phone number? Why? Oh, don't worry. By the end of the video, you will know exactly why. You will know exactly why. And then, well, like I said, it just gets worse. But you supposed real law enforcement officers, today is the day. Let's find out. Huh? Huh? You criminals, you all knew that this day was going to come. You knew that once I found out about what you have tried to do, or were trying to do, that this is exactly what would happen. Because you found out back in 1997, way back then, that you cannot bully, you cannot manipulate, and you certainly cannot threaten a child of the one true living God. None of it worked then. Why in the world do you think it's going to work now? So, you real law enforcement officers, it's time for you to choose ye this day who you will serve. You supposed true, real law enforcement officers. You supposed mighty men of God. You supposed mighty women of God. It's time for you. It's time for you to choose. It's time for you to stand up and do what is right. It's time for you to stand up and in one voice, demand that these criminals be removed. Demand that the law be applied. The only thing that they can do to you is lie about you. That's it. Look, real law enforcement officers, if you all choose not to do it, you've just become a criminal a co-conspirator to these people. You Christians, if you refuse, if you come up with some kind of excuse and say, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it, they won't let me. You're going to be held accountable for that. I'm not mad at you. The choice is yours. But if you, law enforcement officers, if you all refuse to do something about it, and Christians that don't really, these professing Christians refuse to do something about it, well then guess what? Then Almighty God will do something about it. And none of you will like what happens when Almighty God does something about it. Because Almighty God will begin to turn people's life switch from the on to the off switch, is exactly what will happen. So you criminals, you knew that this day was coming. Well, this day is now here. So, you all been wanting to talk to me. You all been wanting a meeting with me. You all been wanting a quote-unquote confrontation with me. You all have been seeking me out. Well, now guess what? Now I'm seeking you out. So, you criminals, you come to me. You come to your nightmare. You come to me out here in the bright, clear, white light where all the truth be. What's that? I can't hear you. Why are they not coming? let's read this. Let's watch the rest of this video, and you will understand exactly why they're not coming. Because they've got nothing. The only thing that they got was caught, and these dummies caught themselves, documented themselves, and then tried to blame it on a child of the Most High God. You all stupid. I ain't got nothing for you. I ain't got nothing for you. So, let's get on with this video now. And remember, it is supposed to be law enforcement officers that are writing this. It is supposed to be law enforcement officers that have documented, it's their own handwriting, they are admitting that they actually did this. Got nothing for you. The only thing I'm doing, look, you criminals, you all have had no problem lying about me for over 20 years. It should not surprise you in the very least bit that a child of the Most High God, a called minister of the gospel, would have no problem telling the truth about you. Let's get on with it, shall we? I will be pausing the video to move down to the next line of the arrest narrative, so everybody doesn't get confused. Now, I'm going to be reading this arrest narrative one line at a time, and that's why I have it zoomed in so fast, so close, so you can see their own handwriting, because honestly, this guy's handwriting is not the best. Okay? Now, a few things I want to point out about this narrative section. One, there is no timeline given. In other words, they never give a time when anything happened or how long between the different events, how much time there was between the different events. What different events? Well, as you will see, and as I will point out as we go through, this arrest and booking report narrative is not a single action or a single conversation, but 5 different conversations, making you think that everything happened bam, 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 bam. Okay? Now, also, I want to point out that I am always and only called a defendant or the defendant, meaning I have to defend or explain why they wrote what they wrote, or I had to explain why I did what they say or claim I did when I didn't do any of it. It's all a lie. You already know right off the bat, this arrest and booking report was never processed. It was processed, but it has no disposition on it. You already know that the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has lied to you, the reader of this arrest and booking report, because there is no such thing as an attempted lewd lascivious upon a minor, and there is no child underneath the age of 16, and nor is there a minor under the age of 18, meaning a child, someone age 16 or 17, and they saying that I solicited a minor to prostitute themselves. So let's get on with it. Okay, on 12/3/1997, Vice detectives were working an escort investigation through an ad in the Florida Times Union. Well, now that didn't take very long now, did it? And in case you missed it, you just had the very first act of transfer take place. And you probably didn't even realize it. And here's what I mean. Right off the bat, it says on 12/3/1997, Vice detectives, you know, the good guys, the police, were working an escort investigation. Now, only bad people are investigated, only crimes are investigated. So what they're just, the way that your brain picks this up and reads this is the good guys, the Jacksonville Vice, are investigating the bad people, the escorts, when simply because, and the way that they're doing it is they're doing it through an ad in the Florida Times-Union. That's your very first case of transfer. Okay? Now, here is the second case of transfer. The defendant, that's me, called the number of the escort business. Okay, stop right there. Why do I have to explain why I called a phone number that the because it's an escort business that I'm calling? Your mind reads it this way. The defendant, the pervert, because remember, the front page of the narrative said, the front page of the arrest and booking report says that I attempted a lewd and lascivious upon a minor, and I solicited a minor to prostitute themselves. So now you have to, they're setting the stage. This guy's a pervert because he goes around calling her up other criminals, escorts. The defendant or the pervert, the guilty person, actually called the number. So he's a bad person. I'm a bad person because I called the number. Who placed the number? Why, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office did. Called the number of the escort business. So it wouldn't be a problem if I called up the burger joint or a pizza place, but because I called up an escort business, just so happens to be the very escort business that the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is running. Hello? Called entrapment. I needed to defend and explain why I'm calling up these bad people, and I'm a bad person simply because I called. Another act of transfer. The bad guy talked with Detective Strickland, the good guy. And you know he's a good guy because, again, that's transfer. Strickland is a detective. I am a mere criminal, the defendant. Yet it's Detective Strickland, the good guy, who's putting the ad in the Florida Times-Union for anybody and everybody to call simply to arrest people. And this is where it really gets weird. I spoke with Detective Strickland, who was posing as the manager of the business. Now, hold on a second. I thought it was they're saying right there, their own words. It's a business. It's completely natural to operate a business, right? But anyway, so he's posing as the manager of a business. And this is what it's saying, and asked for information, remember that word, on the available girl, spelled with a little g, escorts. Okay, here's another case of transfer. Remember, the front page of the arrest and booking report says that I was attempting I committed an attempted lewd lascivious act upon a minor, and I solicited a minor to commit prostitution. By writing girl with a little g, what triggers in your mind is this. This pervert, talking about me, because remember, only perverts go around and attempt lewd lascivious acts upon a minor, and only a pervert solicits a minor to prostitute themselves. By saying that, and by listing girl with a little g, and by the way, this is the only arrest and booking report throughout the entire sting where they spell girl with a little g. Okay? And I'm the only one throughout the entire sting that has 5 different conversations with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Okay? Just so we're clear. As well as I am the only one who asks for information. Everybody else asks for a girl, for an escort. Okay? But your mind reads this as this pervert is asking for a little girl escort, because escort, well, everybody knows all escorts are prostitutes. All escorts, strippers, dancers, heck, even Hooters waitresses, they're all prostitutes. Nothing but a bunch of skank whores, scum of the earth people. That's what they are. That's what the way, because hello, that's the reason why the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is doing in their words, an escort investigation, because escorts are criminal people. They're criminals. They're criminals, and we need to remove. These threats from society. Okay. And this guy is posing as the manager of the business and asked for information on the available girl escorts. So already your mind has already registered the fact that, one, I'm a pervert, simply because what the front of the arrest and booking report says is, because remember, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office are the good guys, and they don't lie. And they said on the front page of this arrest and booking report that I attempted a lewd lascivious act upon a minor, and that I solicited a minor to prostitute themselves. So now, here they're explaining how terrible I am simply for calling the number that they listed. And they write it in there, little girl, because you're already, see, he's looking for a little girl. That's the way your mind reads this. Okay? Now, we're going to continue. Detective Strickland told you ready for this? You guessed it, told the defendant he would have Sabrina, Officer Ratley, the good guy, posing as an escort, the bad person, do what? Call him. Again, I'm going to come up here. We are right here. Okay? Detective Strickland told the... let's back up a little bit more. See, this is why I don't like doing it live. Okay. So the business and asked, right up here, and asked, I called, they're just saying they're saying I called and asked for information on the available little girl escorts. Detective Strickland told the defendant who's he? Detective Strickland, the good guy, would have Sabrina. Who's Sabrina? Why, Sabrina is another good guy, Officer Ratley, who is posing as a escort, posing as a bad guy. We're going undercover, posing as a bad America's most wanted criminal, one of the worst things you could be, an escort. Would have Detective Ratley posing as an escort call him. Okay, that's entrapment. Did I ask? And this is their handwriting. Did I ask Detective Strickland? Well, let's read again. The defendant, we're right up here. The defendant called the number of the escort business, talked with Detective Strickland, who was posing as the manager of the business, and asked for information. When is it against the law to ask for information? I guess it's against the law if you ask for information. I don't know. On the available girl escorts. Well, I got news for you folks. That's not what happened. I asked for information, but I wanted information on how it all worked, not on who was available. So what does this brain surgeon do? Detective Strickland I was told, the defendant, he would have Sabrina, Officer Ratley, posing as a bad person, an escort, call him. Again, that, by the very definition of entrapment, is entrapment. If you call up, why didn't he just give me the information? If all I wanted was information on the available girl escorts, why didn't he just give me the information of the available girl escorts? Because I didn't ask for information on the available girl escorts. I asked for information on how it all worked. And he doesn't need to, apparently he's scared to talk to men. Or he's incapable of answering a simple question. Even his own question. Even if I did call up and ask for information on the available girl escorts, why didn't he give me the information on available girl escorts? Oh, I'm going to tell you why. Because calling up and asking, even if it's asking for information or the statistics or what the available escorts look like, height, weight, measurements, hair color, eye color, ethnicity, even if you do that, that's not a crime. But what he wants is he's going to give me an opportunity to ask the girl over. And it never happens because I wasn't looking for an escort. Period. So why did I call the phone number? Well, because it had been we'll get into that later. Point is, where was I arrested? I was arrested at 4544 Atlantic Boulevard. Where was it? Here it is. 4544 Atlantic Boulevard, Racetrack gas station. I don't live there. Okay? They never came to my house. I wasn't trying to see an escort. But if he gives me that information, then all I'm going to do is hang up. Because I didn't ask for information on the available girl escorts. I asked for information on how it all worked. Now, the simple fact that Detective Strickland, and again, this is his handwriting, Detective Strickland told the defendant he would have Sabrina, Officer Ratley, posing as an escort, call him. Folks, that is the very definition of entrapment. It's also an invasion of my privacy. I didn't ask to be called. They told me, we're going to call you up. We're going to keep dangling this carrot until you have somebody come over. That the police cannot call you up and say, we're just calling to make sure you're not doing anything wrong, nor then can they call you up to give you an opportunity to commit something that they deem as a crime. That's the first case of entrapment. So, fine. He had Sabrina call me. So Officer Ratley called the defendant. And over the ensuing conversation, now this is the second conversation, folks. First conversation was Detective Strickland, who can't give me simple information, and the only thing I asked for was information. Now Officer Ratley calls me, and over the ensuing conversation, this is conversation number 2, the defendant wanted a younger girl. Okay, another case of transfer. Notice, it does not say that the defendant asked for. It says the defendant wanted a younger girl. And the only way that we know this is because, well, that's what they're the good guys. And remember, the front page of the arrest and booking report says that I attempted a lewd and lascivious on a minor, and I solicited a minor to prostitute themselves. And now here you go, right here, Officer Ratley. We can't explain why. There is no explanation given. They just said, hey, look, he wanted a younger girl. But again, notice it does not say the defendant asked for a younger girl. I didn't want a younger girl. And there is no time frame given. We still don't know what time the original call took place. How long was it that before Sabrina called me back? And how long did me and Sabrina talk on the phone? And what else did we talk about in that conversation? So what did we exactly was said that led Officer Ratley to believe or state or that I wanted a younger girl? And again, girl is spelled with a little g. So what does Officer Ratley do? So Officer Ratley told him, who's him? Him be me, told him she would call him back later. Again, do I ask her to call me back? No. She just tells me, I'm going to call you back later. Again, how much later? Why are you calling me back later? If I already told you that you're too old, why in the world are you going to call me back? Apparently, I must have told her that she was too old because, hello, she says right here, the defendant wanted a younger girl. The defendant wanted a younger girl. And again, that's transfer because they write girl with a little g. And hello, the way that your mind registers this is this pervert is not satisfied with a woman. He wants a little girl. So what does Officer Ratley do? Officer Ratley is going to set the pervert up, and she's going to call him back later on. That's the way your brain registers this. And right now you're going, yay, good guys. When It's a felony for these people to call you. The Jacksonville, that's another case of entrapment. Again, read it one more time. Officer Ratley, we're right there, okay? Officer Ratley called the defendant, and over the ensuing conversation, we don't know how long that conversation is, we don't know what was said, the defendant wanted a younger girl. So Officer Ratley told him she would call him back later. So what does she do? Oh, she calls me back. Officer Ratley called him back and told the defendant, hold on, again, I'm called the defendant. Why do I have to explain or defend this person calling me up? Oh, I had to explain it because, well, they're the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and they're the good guys, and I'm the pervert that wants a younger girl. Yet they can't prove that because what you're reading is a lie. It's fictitious. It never happened. But this is what she tells me. And again, this is their handwriting, and this is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office writing this. Okay? Officer Ratley told him she would call him back later. Officer Ratley, this is the third conversation, the second conversation I'm having with Officer Ratley, third conversation total. Officer Ratley called him back and told the defendant what? That she found a what? She found a 14-year-old girl. Hold on a second. Florida Statute 796.03, procuring person under age of 18 for prostitution. A person who procures for prostitution or causes to be prostituted. Any person who is under the age of 18 years commits a felony of the second degree. You got to be kidding me. So what do we have? This is what we have. We have right here the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office telling me and telling you that they called me up. They called me back. They told me that they were going to call me back. And this officer tells me, Officer Ratley called him back and told the defendant that she found a 14-year-old little girl. And who's this 14-year-old little girl? Why, it's Officer Etheridge, posing as a minor. So they call me back and tell me that they found a 14-year-old girl. And remember, they're escorts. They're an escort service. Who offered who a minor? Who injected a minor into the conversation? I didn't even ask to be called back. I was told I was going to be called back. Again, read it again. Officer Ratley told him she would call him back later. I was told I would be called back. Again, for the second time, I'm told I was being called. I have yet to ask for anything other than information. Period. So says their own arrest and booking report. Okay? Officer Ratley called him back and told the defendant, what? that she found a 14-year-old girl, Officer Etheridge, posing as a minor. This is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office doing this, folks. Okay? Okay? I didn't ask for this. They're doing this. They are doing this. That is the very definition of entrapment. Yet they never did come to my house, did they? No, they did not come to my house, because where was I arrested? I was arrested at 4544 Atlantic Boulevard Racetrack Gas Station, and I live at 4346 Carmichael Avenue. Did I ask them to call me back? Did I ask them to find me anybody? Did I ever ask anybody to come over? Did I ever ask for anything other than information? No, I did not. Yet they're just telling you that it wasn't even a real minor, so they're really screwing with me. For what reason? I don't know. It's not a real 14-year-old little girl. It's Officer Etheridge posing as a minor. I guess the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is having a slow day at the office. And they got too much time on their hands. The only thing that they can do is harass people. So what they got to do, they got to put an ad in the newspaper, and anybody that calls it, even if they just call it just to ask for information, well, what we're going to do is we're going to keep harassing you, because that's exactly what that is. We're going to keep harassing you and calling you back until you do something. Until you commit a crime, we're going to entrap you. We're going to set you up. That's exactly what you're reading, folks. Okay? That's exactly what you're reading, because that's exactly what they tried to do. Okay, let's just recap again real quick. Okay? Officer Ratley told him she would call him back later. Officer Ratley called him back, and again, this is the third phone conversation. This is the second time I'm talking to Officer Ratley, and I had already previously spoken with Detective Strickland. So the third conversation, Officer called him back and told the defendant that she found a 14-year-old girl, Officer Etheridge, posing as a minor. Remember, folks, this is their handwriting. This is what they are admitting to. So they are admitting that they are harassing me and giving me multiple opportunities to commit a crime that is never committed, because I never have anyone come to my house. Okay? So, now let's see what the conversation is with this minor. Let's pick up on the next line. And again, I'm called the defendant, and the defendant wanted, mind reading again, wanted to talk to Officer Etheridge. Okay. Does it say I asked? No, it does not say I asked. I have to defend why these people are calling me up, and now I have to defend why I wanted to talk to an officer. Oh, you missed the transfer, because by calling Officer Etheridge, they are by calling Officer Etheridge a 14-year-old girl, a 14-year-old little girl, because again, girl is spelled with a little g. By calling her a 14-year-old girl, because you already had good guy Officer Ratley say, because that's where we're at. We're right here. We're going to read this back. Okay, we're going to show you how this transfer works. Officer Ratley, the good guy, has already said that Officer Ratley called him back, that's me, and told the defendant, so again, I've got to defend why they're calling me back, that She found a 14-year-old little girl. And who's the 14-year-old little girl? Why, it's Officer Etheridge posing as a minor. Now, every time that you see the name Officer Etheridge, your mind is going to instantly go back to the fact that she is a 14-year-old girl, simply because that's how old they want her to be. And remember, I'm the pervert because they said on the front page of the arrest and booking report that, again, I was arrested for an attempted lewd and lascivious upon a minor, and I was arrested for soliciting for a minor to prostitute themselves. You've already got that in your head, so it's not that far of a leap. They're just leading you down the Primrose, the Yellow Brick Rose, all the way on down to Oz, which is also, it just happens to be fictitious. So, from this point on, simply because the good guy, Officer Ratley, tells me that she found a 14-year-old girl, and the only reason why she went out and found me a 14-year-old girl is because Officer Ratley has already said that the defendant wanted what? A younger little girl. So all you're doing, your brain registers this way. All these good guys, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is doing is giving me the opportunity, is setting me up to take out me because I'm the pervert. Yet the only thing that their arrest and booking report says is that I asked for was information. Period. And the only reason why they're doing all of this is because I just so happened to be so lucky to call up the phone number that they listed in the Florida Times-Union. So says their own words. Which again, the only reason why they put that number in the Florida Times-Union is for people to call it so that then they can call you back and harass you until they come over to your house and then arrest you. And now what are they doing? Well, now they are dangling a 14-year-old little girl in front of my face. Yet again, remember, I was arrested at 4544 Atlantic Boulevard, Racetrack Gas Station, and I live at 4346 Carmichael Avenue. So now here's another case of transfer. Officer Ratley found a 14-year-old little girl. Who's the 14-year-old little girl? Why, it's Officer Etheridge. And your brain registers it that they're just trying to set up and remove this threat. Because who calls up an escort service wanting little girls? Because that's what they said right here. Right here. The defendant wanted a younger what? Not a younger woman, not a younger escort, a younger little girl. So all they're doing is giving me exactly what I wanted, yet it does not say I asked for a younger girl. Again, they're defining what I want. The word wanted, that's what the word wanted means. It means desired. Desire. Or is because it's wanted in the past tense, that I desired a younger little girl. That's how your brain registers this. That's why it's called propaganda. That's why it's called transfer. Okay? So now, so now, they're in your mind says, hey, they're just giving this pervert what he wanted, a 14-year-old girl, when how I never asked for anything. How do they know? How do they know what I want? What exactly made them want? Well, they had a conversation. Yeah, well, what happened in that conversation? Right up here. Officer Ratley called the defendant. That's where we're at. Officer Ratley called the defendant, and over the ensuing conversation, well, what was in that conversation? The defendant wanted a younger girl. Folks, remember this, they have to prove that this happened. Guess what they can't prove? That this happened. Why can't they prove that this happened? Because it didn't happen. Which, of course, is why the arrest and booking report is still sitting at Jacksonville Sheriff's Office with these two false, made-up, non-existent charges of attempted lewd and lascivious upon a minor and soliciting for prostitution, and the soliciting for a minor to prostitute themselves, because, hello, there is no such thing as an attempted lewd and lascivious upon a minor. And there is, in order for this statute to be even written, requires a child under the age of 16. And they just told you that there is no child underneath the age of 16. It is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. It is Officer Etheridge. Officer Etheridge, who is posing as a minor. No, she's posing as a child. She's posing as a 14-year-old little girl, a 14-year-old child, a 14-year-old little girl, or a 14-year-old child that Officer Ratley told the defendant that she found. Okay? You got it? These are some sick people, folks. That's harassment. That is harassment. That is the very definition of entrapment. These are people that just don't have, I don't know, just not enough time on their, just too much time on their hands. And all of this happened, why? Because I call up a phone number that they put in the Florida Times Union, and I ask for not to see somebody, not how much is it to see somebody. I want to know, I want information on how it all works. Now, my version can be backed up because this is a undercover vice sting, and they are recording these conversations. They have to have evidence. Otherwise, it's a bunch of he said, she said. And my version of events is being recorded. The truth is being recorded, which again is another reason why this 1997 false felony arrest and book report that documents the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office committing first, second, and third degree felonies against me, that documents them trying to entrap me, is still sitting at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, because that's what you're reading, folks. There is no 14-year-old little girl. There is no minor, period. It's a bunch of people. It's a bunch of control freaks trying to set somebody up simply because they don't know what in the world that they're doing. Again, the only purpose of a escort or a prostitution sting, the only purpose of it is to arrest people. You're reading it. right here. So, defend right here. We're going to read this line, and we're going to move on. That she, Officer Ratley, found a 14-year-old girl. And who's the 14-year-old girl? Why, it's Officer Etheridge, who's posing as a minor. And we're right here. The defendant wanted to talk to Officer Etheridge. Now, again, does it say that the defendant asked to speak? No. Again, they use the wanted word. Guess what? The only thing that I wanted them to do was stop calling me, because that's what I kept telling them every time that they called me. How many times did they call me? They called me for 2.5 hours, folks. That's why there's no timeline on this daggum thing. They called me so many times that I called up the non-emergency line of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and told the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, hello, this escort service keeps calling me. And you know what the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office non-emergency line told me? Don't answer your phone. That was their solution. Now, let me tell you why they did that. Because this, again, is the very first ever reverse escort sting operation done in the history of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So says the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and I'll show you the newspaper article in coming videos. Okay? And they know I have the audacity to call up and tell these and report their crimes to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, that's harassment, folks. Think of it this way, it's 1997, and today, if telemarketers are fined if they call you, what is it, $500 or $1,500 per call? That's because that's harassment. No soliciting. These people, an escort service, is calling me back. I gave them the phone number. Well, again, they don't want to call out this particular escort service because, well, it's the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And a police officer cannot that's harassment, folks. It's also the very definition of entrapment. They're going to keep offering me people until they finally have a reason, until I finally say, just come over. But there's one problem. I don't want to see people, let alone see a 14-year-old little girl. So, prior to them offering me a 14-year-old little girl, I had called up the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and told them, these people won't stop calling me. These people are calling me every 5 to 10 minutes, like clockwork. I keep telling them, stop calling me. And when you tell a police officer to stop calling you, they have to stop calling you. As a law-abiding citizen, they cannot keep calling you up and harassing you. That's harassment, folks. Plain and simple. So these people had called me so many times, I called up the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and I gave them the phone number. Even told them where the ad was. And their solution was, just don't answer your telephone. So I'm just supposed to sit there and let the daggum phone ring? The better question is, well, and everybody says, well, why didn't you just turn off the phone? No, the better question is, why in the world is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office calling me so many times, posing as an escort service, when every time they call me, I tell them to stop calling me? You show me one time in this arrest and booking report where I asked to be called. You won't find one. And it's their arrest and booking report. They're the ones that wrote it by their own admission. They're telling you, the reader, that I was told every single time to be called. Now they're telling you that I wanted to talk to Officer Etheridge. And that's another case of transfer, because the way that your mind reads it is this pervert wants to talk to a 14-year-old little girl. He's not talking to, and trust me, it gets better. Okay? So, and again, my version of events is recorded. That's why this arrest and booking report's sitting down there at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, because this is a tremendous work of fiction. Did they call me back? Yep. Again, they called me for 2.5 hours trying to come over to my house. Did they ever come over to my house? Why, of course not, because where was I supposedly arrested? Again, their arrest and booking report, 4544 Atlantic Boulevard. And where do I live? I live right down the street, 4346 Carmichael Avenue. Okay? So let's continue. So, Officer Etheridge, we're right there. Started, I guess is what he meant. I told you the guy's, he's an imbecile. This person's an imbecile. He doesn't even know grammar, for crying out loud. Starting talking with the defendant. Again, what do I have to defend? Why do I have to explain that this woman, this sick pervert, Officer Ratley, went out and found a 14-year-old little girl? Why do I have to explain why they called me back? And again, they have to prove that this took place. They have to prove that I wanted, that I, quote unquote, wanted to talk to a 14-year-old little girl. They can't, which of course is again another reason why this arrest and booking report is still sitting today in the year 2017 at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. The original. Because again, that's them committing more crimes. They're harassing me. They're pimping out. I don't know. Can you tell how old somebody is by talking to them on the phone? Nope. You can't. Especially females. And remember, the whole purpose of this, what escort service has 14-year-old little girls working for them? None. And remember, it's Officer Ratley that found this 14-year-old little girl. Only there's one little problem. It's not a 14-year-old little girl. It's another JSO officer who's simply trying to entrap somebody. They had to explain why they did all this. Why did they keep calling me back? So anyway, so they started talking with the defendant. And again, no timeline. And over the ensuing conversation, what happened this time? Now, I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm going to give you a warning. It's about to get very graphic. And just remember, this is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office that's saying this. And that this is a lie, because it was never, it's a lie. The original document, the original arrest and booking report, has yet to see a day in court. And this is why. Because this, again, is the very definition of entrapment. Over the ensuing conversation, the defendant, here you go, knowing that he was talking with a 14-year-old. How do I know it's a 14-year-old? Why, after being told so. Told so. So, if, ladies, look, if you want to become younger, all you got to do is tell somebody that you're younger, and that makes you younger. You just read it. The only reason that I knew I was talking to a 14-year-old little girl was because I was told I was talking to a 14-year-old little girl. And I was told to by the good guys, you know, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, who you simply forgot that they were the ones that went out and found this supposed 14-year-old little girl. Another case of transfer. So what do I do? I agreed to pay Officer Etheridge. Okay, stop right there. You please explain to me, how can you, how anyone can agree to do anything without first being offered to do something? Translation, I was solicited. They solicited me. There is no way in the world that you can agree to give a ride to someone to the grocery store without someone asking you to take them to the grocery store in your vehicle. There is no way for you to agree to buy a car without someone offering to a car for you to sell, to purchase. There is no way for you to agree to accept a job without someone offering you a job to agree to accept, to take. So, by them using that word agreed, they are admitting that whatever he agreed to, we offered first. So what did I agree to? I agreed to pay Officer Etheridge. Okay, here's where the transfer comes in. Because now Officer Etheridge, remember, because because supposedly I know supposedly Officer Etheridge is a 14-year-old girl. And the only reason why, and I know that simply, and I know that I'm talking to a 14-year-old girl because they told me that Officer Etheridge is a 14-year-old girl. It's called transfer. So I agreed to pay Officer Etheridge what? $100 for, again, it's going to get graphic, sex. But not just sex, sexual intercourse, and a blowjob, oral sex. Okay. This is how your brain reads this. Okay? Because you just had sex thrown at you 6 times. And let me show you how. $100 for sex. There's first sex. Sexual. There's the second sex. Intercourse. There's the third sex. And a blowjob. There is the fourth sex. And oral. There's the fifth sex. And sex. There's the sixth sex. So your brain registers those words this way. The after being that the defendant agreed to pay a 14-year-old girl, Officer Etheridge, $100 for sex, 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 sex. By this point in time, you're enraged. That is another case of transfer. When, again, what really happened? They solicited me. They just put this woman, who I truly believed was a 14-year-old little girl, because she didn't. Officer Etheridge told me that she had a 14-year-old little sister, so she told me it was her sister. My version is recorded. This never happened. I didn't agree to anything. Officer Etheridge got on the phone and told me point blank, and again, folks, it's going to get graphic. She told me point blank, if you give me $100, I will come over to your house and I will give you a blowjob, and you can fuck me. Her words, not mine. And again, this is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office doing this to me. That is, again, the very definition of entrapment. And you want me to prove it? Simple. I can prove it. Why else do you think that this arrest and booking report is still sitting at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office without a final disposition on it? This is the original arrest and booking report without a final disposition on it, listing, and we already know that there is no such thing as an attempted lewd lascivious upon a minor. There is no such thing as soliciting for prostitution of a minor, because the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and we just read it, has admitted that there was no minor, nor was, let alone a child, underneath the age of 16. It's just a bunch of Jacksonville Sheriff's officers who keep calling me back, harassing me, telling and offering me a 14-year-old child. To have sex with. You just read it. So, what happens next? Right there. Blowjob, oral sex. So what happens next? Well, Vice detectives and both, oh, you're going to love this, both officers, Officer Ratley, Officer Etheridge, met the defendant at 4544 Atlantic Boulevard Racetrack gas station, where he was arrested and Mirandized. The defendant, I love this. The defendant admitted orally. In other words, I'm not on the phone. All of that took place. Those 4 conversations took place on the phone. Defendant admitted orally to the entire conversation. Which conversation? Because first conversation was Detective Strickland. Then I had 2 more conversations, different conversations, with Officer Ratley. Then I had the 4th conversation, you just read it, with Officer Etheridge, who was posing as a 14-year-old little girl and who prostituted herself out to me. And then I'm having a 5th conversation here. Unless I'm using sign language, I had to have a 5th conversation. Oh, no, it wasn't sign language, because it says right here, the defendant admitted orally, that's with your mouth, also off tape, to the entire conversation. The defendant was then booked into the PTDF, which stands for Pre-Trial Detention Facility, or the jail. And they can't prove any of it because none of it happened. None of it happened. Period. Period. Now that's now do you understand why this original copy of this 12/3/1997 false felony arrest and booking report is still sitting down at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office with no disposition on it in the year 2017? Yep. Now you know why.